It is exactly 2:01, I think. I'm gonna 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. All right. Let the record show. First, I want to thank everyone for coming here. I think it's something we probably need to do more in the future is visit some of the facilities firsthand. I mean, when I first came through this place, I was just knocked out. And of course, I really like how the employees are being treated. Mary Ann was the one who really pushed for those computer things that go up and down. And I asked a woman how she liked it, and she said it's a lifesaver. And so I had Mary Ann here too. Anyway, it's really great. It's laid out well and it's being run well. I think we have some terrific people here too, and particularly in charge. We're very fortunate. So what we're going to do today is talk about the 911 center. We're going to talk about the siren system of warnings, emergency management, those sorts of things. And if you need to leave your phones on for any reason, you're certainly welcome to. You're in a kind of a high profile business, all of you are, so go ahead and do that. Don't feel bad if it goes off. Just to make a note, I turned mine off because I'm not in a high profile business like you folks. So anyway, first, I think what I'd like to do is just ask you for a, go ahead. Oh, excuse me, the open meetings law. Yeah. So if anybody comes in off the street, we've got the open meetings law here. Forgot about that. Anything else I need to do?
No,
okay. I rely on him. He tells me everything.
Yeah.
So true. I think we all would like to hear about, particularly with the terrible disasters that we went through, and talk about the kind of work that you did, because I know it was remarkable and sounds like it might be coming again to some extent. So we have to, we need to know probably what we can do to help. But I'd like to ask first, Kathy, if you'd tell us what's going on in the 911 center and kind of just give us a rundown of, and if you're anything that's, I know hiring is always difficult, particularly nowadays. So if you're having trouble with that or anything, we need to know about that too. But would you mind just giving us a brief rundown of what's taking place?
We're hiring and people are leaving, retiring, finding different jobs that don't require night, weekends, and holidays. It's a challenge for us, but we're working closely with HR now. We're down, I believe, 9 people right now. And we've got a continual posting for both operators and dispatchers. We changed up the test a bit. We've got some flyers going out to promote the new building and the new center. Hoping that'll help. It'll be going to colleges, and Northwest High School has a specific 911 class that they go for a full year and they actually get a certificate. So we're working with them to see how that's going. We've got, I think, 60 people lined up to take the dispatcher tests here. So hopefully we'll get our staffing up to par, because we've got 5 babies being born in June and July. So it's a continual challenge, but we have brought back some retirees that were in good standing as part-time people that have really helped for lunch relief and calling them at spur of the minute for sick leave. So that's helped our department a lot. We're on budget so far this year. We've done a lot of technical upgrades that I can kind of let Kyle go over. A lot of stuff's been happening there. Of course, we're all still concerned about Next Gen 911 and the funding for that. And I think Crystal's going to talk a little bit about that. And so basically, we're just plugging along.
Well, that sounds great. I think particularly that's interesting about Northwest. That's really something interesting. Kyle, would you like to tell us a little bit about what's happening with electronics and all the rest of it?
Sure. Some of the big things that have come up recently is Sarpy County has joined the Orion Radio Group. So we now have Washington County, Pottawatomie County, Douglas County, Sarpy County, and Omaha Public Power District, all sharing a radio system. The Sarpy County portion of that also made it more redundant. There is now what's called a redundant master site located in Sarpy County. So the primary master site for Orion is across the street at the 911 Technology Center. The backup master site is located in Sarpy County. Those are all connected together over the regional microwave network, which just this week we finished an expansion on replacing all of the microwave radios in that. They were originally put in service in 2009. This is the first time they've all been replaced. They now are more modern technology. They have higher bandwidth, more resiliency. In all of the counties supported that project. Omaha Public Power District used to maintain that, the microwave radios in that system. Now that is transitioning to Douglas County. We'll be supporting that for all of the counties involved. We are also now bringing Dodge County into that regional microwave group and into, excuse me, the Orion radio group. So the coverage on our radio system continues to expand, which is good for first responders going over county lines. They don't have to worry about their radios stopping when they hit the county line. They can just keep on going and they continue to have coverage. Sharing with computer-aided dispatch continues to expand. Mobile data systems are getting upgraded, which is what's used out in the, whether it's fire apparatus or in cruisers for law enforcement. The RMS system from DCSO is expanding out to the rural law agencies, possibly to some of the other counties in the near future. So those are kind of the big projects. Everything is very regionalized. There's nothing that we're doing that's just specifically within Douglas County. Since all of our responses end up expanding beyond our county lines on a regular basis, it makes sense to have everything as regionalized as possible.
That also helps with expenses. It's shared
That's
expenses,
great.
so they all pay their share. In fact, on the microwave, the expenses are being shared, but not by us because our tech department is monitoring it. and
That-
running it. Yeah.
That was part of the agreement that should be signed within the next couple of months, is that now with Douglas County providing the actual support personnel on that, all of the other counties in the power district are picking up the pay or the costs on that, and Douglas County is just providing the support. So
I think Leah is in the room. She came in. She's our lifeline to the public. So I asked her to get an interview with you with the appropriate time to, because that's really exciting to hear. It really is. I mean, particularly the part about the law enforcement being able to cross county lines on a high-speed chase or whatever it is and not have to worry about who he's talking to or she is talking to. I wanted to ask, what about the governance of this? How does it work? Is there any board?
there are multiple boards. So Orion has a board that was founded years ago with the radio sharing, and that board has just gotten larger with more members as more agencies come on board.
Good.
So when Sarpy County joined, the interlocal agreements were rewritten to bring Sarpy County in. Most of those boards, whether it's on radio or on the wide area wireless, they end up with a voting member from each of the parties. So whether it's the power district or any of the counties, there's equal representation into there.
And I'm not trying to throw a wrench in this, but is that contract then sent to the county clerk? Do you control all those, or do you control all the contracts to the county and not you?
All the interlocals go to Teresa who
good.
helps
Yep.
us write them, and then
Okay,
yes,
great.
they're filed.
Good. We got to make sure there's an
Yep.
attorney involved, you know what I mean?
Of
We gotta
course.
have an attorney here. But anyway, and then I'm curious too, are people taking videos of accidents? I heard that was starting to occur in some parts of the country. They take videos and somehow send that to 911. Is that happening? or is
Not
that-
here, not
Okay.
in Douglas yet.
Are you going to try to stay away from that, or do the counties around here, some prohibit it and some okay it?
It's part of next gen.
Oh.
It's
Okay.
not, it's not fully baked yet. Some parts of the country have next gen 911 services that they can deliver video, but it doesn't exist yet in Nebraska.
Let me ask you a question. Have you thought about, do you want it? I mean, is it something that would add anything to your, in my book, I don't think it would, but I'm not a dispatcher and I don't run this place, but I think if it is, we need to, we'd like to hear from you, because I don't think we need to accept those if it's going to really bog things down with volume and all sorts of things. But I'll leave that up to you to
Right.
think about an answer, how you feel about it. Because I for myself would support whatever your decision is. I would go with it, but I'm kind of opposed to it myself. So anyway, Chris.
But you realistically can't deny it in the social media world.
Right. If we have the
I mean,
equipment.
we look like an
Yeah.
arcade.
Well, if we have to, maybe we could send it off to a different
Yeah.
server.
Right.
I don't know. You're right, Chris.
It's gonna be a huge cost though, and a huge storage.
Yeah.
Issue, but,
And who gets it? Who ends up with it? Us or the law enforcement agency that will use it for
there's
investigative?
a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
I think we need to thoroughly discuss this to make sure
Absolutely.
that, as crazy as we look, we may need to figure out what we can do to, I understand. I'm a lot older than you.
It's like,
That's the deal.
like the train at Craig used to say, you're in a sport that's jumping, you're gonna have tendonitis. It's an occupational hazard.
All right. Well, we'll get it on an agenda, future agenda, okay, and we'll discuss it. Let's see, I wanted to ask too about the volume, what's happening to the volume of calls and who's really making them, where, if you know where they're coming from.
It's
That's
pretty much, it's kind of been leveled off.
Okay.
We haven't had a real big increase in call volume.
Okay.
It's kind of stabilized a little bit.
Okay. And you have records like from who you dispatched, the sheriff or the Omaha police, or, and how about volunteer fire departments? Claire Duda's not here, so I ask on his behalf.
Yeah, we have monthly statistics that go out at the user group meetings
Okay.
that all of them attend.
Okay.
And so they can see a breakdown of all their calls, the times.
All right. Do they have to pay, or they aren't charged, are they?
No.
They aren't. Okay, good. Anybody have any questions for this group? Okay. And of course, you said did you say you're under budget? Probably because of the staffing.
Don't spend it somewhere else.
Let's go to the casino down
I said we're right on,
Right
budget.
on the.
Right on budget.
Superb.
It's good to tell me. It's other people in this room who shouldn't be told.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. What about, are there any, I hesitate asking in public, but you're welcome to say so in private as well to any of the commissioners that are involved or anything. But if there are any particular problems that you're having that you think we could help with, I know we stand ready to do that. And I don't know whether it's, parking or whether it's, the whatever, some crazy thing that's making you nuts or whatever. We want to help. We want to make this a really even better place to work than it is. Because I know certainly the facilities certainly are helping a lot, I hope.
Right.
And anyway, anything that we can do, Marianne?
Well, I think going back to that Northwest High School program, I would love to add, another one of your committees or soon after, or this one, have that presented to us in detail and then see how we can expand that with other high schools.
I guess.
I think that's a great thing you guys are doing with them. I mean, that's good.
I agree
I mean,
completely. I should have
sounds
thought
like a
that.
good part.
Thank you. That's a really good idea. So if you want to tuck that away and,
Okay.
and contact them and say we want to bring them down to the courthouse, down to the Civic Center and get them on Cox Cable, make a presentation. Of course, you'd be involved as well. That'd be great. Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Let's see. And as far as when is enhanced, whatever it's called, Next Gen 911, when is that supposed to be coming? Do you want to take
Soon.
that one?
Right.
Soon?
Yeah, soon. So the first thing that we were doing is kind of grappling with how the money is going to be dispersed.
And I should have introduced her. This is Crystal Rhodes, who's our representative on the Public Service Commission. And I'm not used to really running too many meetings, so excuse me for doing that.
For those of you that don't know me, yes, I'm Crystal Rhodes. I serve on the Nebraska Public Service Commission as the commissioner for most of the Omaha, Douglas County area. I wanted to first have some discussion among the commissioners about the funding formula.
Yeah.
Because understanding the cost of the implementation of Next Generation was going to be high.
Yeah.
And looking at what Douglas County has been receiving in state aid, in my mind, is really not equitable. The current proposal that's advanced to the commission is a formula that distributes the entirety of the wireless 911 fund, 40% to foundation aid, 40% for 40% for call volume and 20% population. It does increase the amount of aid that Douglas County gets from just over 450,000 to about 1.2 million, which is better. But what I wanted to talk to you about was I think you should get more. I think you should get a lot more. Douglas County right now pays in, let's see, I have the number here, 2.6 every year, and you're getting back roughly 450,000.
Wow.
Douglas County has roughly half of all of the 911 calls made in Nebraska are made in Douglas County. The other half are the other 91 counties combined, including the city of Lincoln, who comes in at just over 100,000 calls. And my fear is that too much of the money is being put into foundation aid. And what that means is that we have counties, and I'll pick on Rock County because they're the one that it bothers me the most, but they're getting about $156 per call. They're only getting about 300 calls a year. And they are sitting on substantial set-aside funds. Let me have a look at what the last, tell you what that one was. So, and they have over 100, they have $105,000 in set-aside funds that they haven't even spent. So when I start looking at that, and this is to varying degrees true of a number of the smaller, more rural counties, my fear is that we're putting too much into that foundation aid, which compromises obviously your ability to serve the public here, because you have to make up the difference, as does the city of Omaha. And so while I am glad to see that there will be an increase to Douglas County, in my view, it's not sufficient. So I'm here to kind of ask for your help, because while you'll have my vote and I will continue to be as strong of an advocate as I could possibly be, you need 3. When you look at what the counties have contributed versus what they have, what they're actually receiving back, there are problems also for Lancaster, Sarpy, Washington, Hall. Counties that have larger populations and bigger 911 call centers, and who also receive higher call volume and have more population, are also suffering and would benefit from a more call and or population-based formula. So I'm not suggesting that that formula be changed per se. I think that the pieces are correct. I just think that the weighting should be adjusted down. Ideally, you know, I think that Douglas County's contribution to the rest of the county should be about $400,000 to $500,000, and the rest of it should come back here. There has been a move towards regionalization and consolidation in a number of these PSAPs, but my concern is, given that collectively the counties are holding about $10 million in set-aside funds, and that we are going to have substantial ongoing foundational support, that will actually stymie and act as a disincentive for further consolidation, which would also be a cost savings. That also combined with the cap on what the surcharge can be here in Douglas County puts Douglas County at a disadvantage. Now, I have been, much to the chagrin I know of many of you, opposed to increasing that lid here in Douglas County, because it's my feeling it would do us a whole lot of good to raise that lid if the funding formula doesn't distribute it back to you. It just ends up being more money out of Douglas County that our constituents are going to benefit from, and I don't want to see that happen.
Is that the 50 cents?
So,
Tell us again why we shouldn't do that, because it's going to other places, right?
correct, right. So we would increase the amount that's coming out of Douglas County, but it wouldn't necessarily be coming back to Douglas County.
Right.
So I just want to get that.
So the wire, the traditional 911 and the wireless all go to the same fund?
No. So the wire line, you all collect and keep, and that's true in every county. The wireless comes to the Nebraska Public Service Commission, we
But
redistribute it.
isn't the dollar on the,
The cap applies for Douglas County to both the wire line and the wireless. And actually that is the reason that statewide it's only 45 cents, because I think it would actually be higher, but they don't want to raise it on the other counties and not have Douglas County have to pay the same rate. So I think that's actually kind of a contributing factor in terms of how that's working. All of that being said, what I have learned is that and let me be very clear, I would not be opposed to increasing the 911 surcharge. We have the ability to do that, and it is directly attributable and auditable for the purposes of 911, right? So it's not one of those things where it kind of goes somewhere and maybe we get it back or not. I would be open to increasing that, but not until such time that we can get this formula so that the money is coming back to Douglas County. And I think we can do that.
And we can't, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
and we can't do it just on the wired where we collect and keep. You can't do it.
I mean, you could potentially. I mean, it would depend on what you were able to get. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you never know what that legislature's gonna do.
Well, we're gonna have to wait until the
Yeah,
next
wait, well, till,
session.
right.
Yeah.
But there might be an opportunity in the next session.
We think there might be
Might be.
Right.
an opportunity in the next session.
Right, we never get
Depending
it
on the
through.
makeup.
Right,
Right.
now.
Right.
I wanted to ask you too, would you talk just a little bit about, you mentioned foundation support frequently. What is that foundation aid? What is that all about?
So they take 40% of the entirety of the money, which is about 8 million that we're collecting on an annual basis. They take 40% of that and they divide it by 93 and everybody gets the same.
Same amount, okay.
My view is that 40% should be lowered to something closer to 10.
Well, the
15.
foundation is just kind of like operational, that everybody gets the same. thing.
Everybody gets the same because you have to open your doors and that's the baseline.
Okay.
And the argument against that, to be fair to, what the other side of this is that they say, well, larger counties have economy of scales. And I'm like, well, they do, but we have to have more staff and more, bigger buildings and more, more wages and more insurance and all of that. So there is some economy of scale, but it's not to the tune of $2.2 million annually, certainly.
Right.
And so I think Douglas County and the city of Omaha are in a very strong position to advocate for more. And I'm really here to ask you to do it because absent your voices to the other commissioners, and frankly, even working with perhaps, Lancaster, Sarpy, Washington, some counties that you're already working with on other things, and helping to help them understand that they too are at a disadvantage because of the weighting of the formula
I think
would be helpful.
Yeah, I think what we need, at least I do, others can speak, but I think what we need is really some information about the things you've talked about, what the plans are now, what you may want to recommend something, which I think we probably agree with you, but some kind of a plan. So when we talk to Lincoln and everybody else that we have, we're saying the same thing as other counties. And Patrick?
And just so you know, this gets interesting because there's a subcommittee that I've been sitting in on that has been working through all of this to try to come up with a funding mechanism. And that subcommittee is presented to a committee which Kathy Allen sits on.
Okay.
And then that committee has to, accept it or come up with something else, and they make a recommendation to the Public Service Commission,
Okay.
who ultimately makes the decision.
That makes a
So
lot of sense.
right now, the subcommittee, they made a recommendation to the committee, which was rejected because, we did not get enough money, but now they're coming back with the 1.2 million. So on the face of it, for me, and I'm a layperson, I'm not an expert, going from 450,000 to 1.2 million, it's almost triple. So that seems like it's really good deal. The question is, do you think that you can get more out of, the other two members of the Public Service Commission, and what impact will that have on the smaller PSAPs, public safety answering points, 911 centers in the state?
Well, I think if it's shown that they are sitting on, $1 million or something, that's first they could use their reserves for starters. Whatever. The whole thing it's ridiculous they have that. But I'm surprised the governor hasn't seized it yet. I wonder, and I think I'll tell him, what is the authority of the committee you sit on to reject what that subcommittee recommends? I don't understand that.
So it's majority, and I
Okay.
sit on the committee with other PSAPs that are a lot smaller
Okay.
and government officials that are smaller. And so in the last meeting that I was at, there was 3 funding plans to go
Okay.
forward. One was giving us far less money, and one was giving us a little more money. Well, the middle one, the 1.2 million, won by 1 vote.
Mhm.
So everybody else wanted the smaller amount, us to get the smaller amount.
But
So-
the bigger one, when you said the middle one, it was the middle of the 3. It wasn't like,
Right, right.
the bigger one was
Right.
a little bit more than what.
Right.
So it was,
1.2, 1.1, and 1.3 are the
Right.
options.
I guess I'll ask this question, how I say things that are kind of inappropriate. Since when does some committee have the right to tell us what our revenue is? Who in the hell gave them jurisdiction?
but the PSC has the right.
Well, I know, but why? So
Because
is
the PSC has-
delegated?
No,
It's a
it's created
committee.
in so
Statute.
it's in statute that we have this advisory committee.
Okay, it's an
Yeah.
advisory committee, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so the advisory committee says no. Okay, well,
So
that,
the advisory committee doesn't like the recommendation of the
Yeah.
subcommittee. It's a subcommittee of their committee. So if they don't like it, they can reject it. But I mean, they can kick it up to us. I still want you to reject it.
yeah, I understand that.
Right. I was just
I understand
saying,
that. I
still
understand
one
it.
more step.
I understand it completely, but I didn't get where, I didn't know it was set in statute. For starters, I thought it was just a bunch of people getting together for a hamburger and saying no deal, from Ong, Nebraska or someplace. Okay, well, that helps. But of course, I'm always interested, but it's pretty impossible to change the legislation on this because the numbers are against us with all these. But, I don't know. I definitely agree with what you're saying. And what we probably have to do, and this is for the record, is shame Sarpy County's representative and also shame Lancasters for starters, and maybe even go on up to further west and shame somebody else on the PSC to support your position. I mean, it's ridiculous. This just doesn't make any sense at all. I don't even think President Trump would go for this.
It's, what I have learned is that even the recommendation that comes to us on what to set that surcharge is not actually based in anything.
Yeah.
It is a number that has been arrived at based on what the people around the table think will be palatable. It is not based on the actual need
Well, how do we,
of the counties and what it actually costs to run those centers.
what do we need to build a good case that's, I guess, airtight, that says this is what we need and this is what Lancaster needs and this is what Sarpy, what criteria do we need to put
Well,
together?
I think the first question you ask is, would $1.2 million be able to fund us so that we could afford the next generation system? Or do we need?
Yeah, because they're also, the state is also funding that system. Aside from what we're getting, they're also spending money on it. So it's not like we need all of that money. It's not like it's going to cost us a lot more because the state is putting separate money in. So Kathy, you can
So
say.
are there funding mechanisms in place then to fund the next generation
The
911?
statewide infrastructure, yes.
So we won't have to raise that capital.
They're guessing, like I said, everything's nothing, they don't have any for sure costs on anything yet. So they're guessing that the estimated cost of core services that the state will pick up will be about $998,000 a year. I don't know if that's true or not. There's nothing that we can compare it to
That's
know
for us.
that for
Let's
Douglas
say,
County.
Oh, for Douglas County, just
So
$998,000.
close to $1 million a
Yeah.
year.
But as I understand it, the PSAP's just under 9 million is the,
What,
it's just under 9 million is the operational budget for the PSAP.
across the state?
Right. No, for Douglas
Douglas
County.
County.
Oh, I was
Sorry.
gonna say. All right. Any other,
So
Yeah.
you suggesting Shram and whoever?
I think Schramm, Watermeyer, but I also think you should make a case to Johnson and Ritter. I mean, the reality is these are our constituents and they're paying for a service. It should be directed. I mean, the money has to come from somewhere. What county is picking up, the city's picking up, and that's all got to come out of general revenue and budgets. This is a specialized fund.
Yeah.
For 911 services. We ought to maximize it. Frankly, we ought to raise the surcharge. We ought to pay a bigger portion of it. It's a direct thing, and constituents don't mind paying for 911. They are okay with it. What I'm not okay with, though, is them putting the magic vacuum cleaner over Douglas County, sucking all the money into Lincoln and then redistributing it everywhere but here. It's not fair to us.
no. Well, I think we're gonna have to, I've been opposed to
It's not
that,
fair to us.
raising the funds, but I'd be willing to, if that would get us some footing and some credibility, to go ahead and try to get our share of it. And I really would like to figure out some way to, a political way, I guess, if we can put some pressure on these people. Who's the other one? Who's the guy, person, or the, who's from,
Dan
we got-
Watermeyer.
what's his
Jim's
name? How do you spell his name?
Dan Watermeyer used to be the senator.
What's his name?
Watermeyer, Watermeyer.
Okay, good, okay.
All
right.
This is going to get tricky because when is the committee meeting?
March 12th, I think.
So this is where it gets a little sticky because you have to vote on this
Right.
thing. And up until you brought your concerns up, we were ready to say we're good with it because we're getting 1.2 million, which is almost 3 times what we were getting. So now, I mean, you need to know
How to vote.
how to vote.
Well, I think she votes yes, because 1.4 million is not forever.
But this doesn't, this also doesn't kick in until we actually start the process to Next Gen 911, which might not be next year because Buffalo County's going first.
Well, what's the problem with voting yes for it? I don't understand.
No, I think that's fine. She should vote yes. That's what I was saying, but the way it's coming to me now is we should say no because it's
No.
not enough.
No,
No.
I think she takes the position, yes, we'll take what you're offering.
Right.
I think
talking
you
about us.
At the higher
Oh,
level.
right.
should
Okay.
take the position.
We want more.
We want
I see.
more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other
Alright.
big problem is what we're allowed to spend it on is very, I mean, it's crazy. The audit is just like,
No, I
you've
want
never
you,
seen an audit like it before.
I actually, I'm with you on that. There was a huge backlog on the audits when I first got into office. And they walked me through the audit process, which is absurd. I agree. And there are a lot of in my view, a lot of unnecessary restrictions on that funding as well. And I believe that there are other commissioners who are bought into that as well, right?
Good.
We need a more streamlined process. We need to not make this so laborious. We don't need to put as many restrictions on it. We need to open up the types of things that we're willing to fund and pay for. I think everyone is in agreement on
Good.
that, right? So all of that, you should expect to see that changing over the next year to year and a half, okay? The main thing is I want to make sure that the money's coming back here.
Well, maybe what we should do is tie in, since other commissioners apparently, or whatever, other people are upset over the auditing, so maybe we go in and try to redo the audit at the same time we redo the money. I mean, they want to redo the audit, great, we do too. Now we also want to do the money, put the whole thing as a package, see what happens. I don't know. Let's talk about that sometime.
We can, yeah.
But who gives these rules on the audit? Is another subcommittee or a committee?
No, these were commission rules and these were established a very long time ago, like in the early 2000s when they very first came up with the enhanced 911 funding. It has not been an easy process for the counties or for the PSC to manage, and we don't want to continue.
Who does the
to do it
audit?
this way. The PSC staff, and it basically is a review of every dime that is spent. And it's really
Very
time
detailed
intensive.
financial audit.
Yeah, and it's very, very time intensive. And frankly, we just don't think
Who's
that it's necessary.
Who's the state auditor? Anyway, I've lost track.
Charlie Jansen.
Oh, he's never worked, so what the hell? Go over to the bar and get him, no, stop that. I'm just thinking, I worked for the Fraternal Order of Police. We got audited by the state auditor, and it was a bloody mess, but it really, it was helpful in the end.
These are like internal auditors.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is maybe if the internal auditors have these rules maybe we just give it to the state auditor who does that for a living. I mean, I know your people.
We
do too.
actually, I was voting no on 911 orders for several months
Yeah.
there. And at every meeting, I said, these audits are 5 years behind. You absolutely have no idea what you're doing with it because of the process. The process was terrible for everyone. And so they just got stacked up and nobody was keeping up on them. So we actually hired people from the state auditor's office to come in and get all the audits caught up and get everything, which is then when we learned that there were roughly $10 million in set aside funds, partly because counties were getting money that they simply weren't able to spend. Some of that was because of the restrictions on the funding and money was ending up stranded. So through me being, difficult.
Yeah.
Persistent, yes, thank you. Thank you, Mary Ann. Persistent, we were able to identify some of those issues and it is really top of the list to get those nailed down.
Okay.
I just was real hesitant about wanting to make I was leveraging, right? I want to make sure that we get this part done first and that Douglas County gets as much out of it as they can.
Yeah.
Before I start agreeing to other things.
Well, I think that's great. I'm personally very grateful to you for doing this. I think you had a wonderful person who helped train you.
She
But
was
anyway,
great.
so I may say so myself. And I know you think so too. But anyway, when you talk, you remind me of Ann and the attitude about serving the consumer and the taxpayer. So I really appreciate that, Crystal, a lot. I think it's something we have to further develop, and I don't need to necessarily be involved or clog this up with my bizarre ideas. So we can but work with us any way we can. We really appreciate your coming this morning or this afternoon rather to do this. It's really helpful. And we need your guidance, and I think I am certainly committed to following it. I think lay out a plan and then go for it. I think that makes sense. Mary Ann?
Well, and that's what I was going to say, maybe the follow-up would be a meeting with a smaller group.
Yeah.
And Crystal, so that we can really go through knowing what we
Yeah.
should be asking for and fighting for. So we as commissioners totally understand it.
Mary Ann, would you do me a favor? Would you put together the members of that committee and then just let us all know or whatever, and then just certainly there are certain people at the table that should be there. I don't need to be there, but I'll stay informed. I'm willing to do it, but I don't need to be. If you think there's another commissioner that should come, that's fine with me. And maybe Claire might have some influence with other counties over me. I don't know. But anyway,
Okay.
I'll just leave that up to you. If you do that, that'd be great. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I have also just, in the spirit of transparency and cooperation.
Yeah.
I have been summoned down to City Hall as well. I alerted the council members in the same way that I
Good.
asked Patrick to alert the county
Good.
board members.
Great.
They would like to learn more. And so I think there might be an opportunity for the county and city to maybe present a united front, at least in terms of being advocates for additional money. I think you guys, I understand the rural county's position, but it's a heck of a lot easier for a smaller county to figure out how they're going to make up $2,000 or $3,000 than it is for Douglas County to figure out how to make up $1 million. And that's really what we're talking about. And given that you all are processing half the calls, it just doesn't, the fairness of it just doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair.
Maybe we could get paid on the number of calls or something. Who knows?
We've
Paul,
known, we've been getting the short straw for years, but we just haven't really
figured out
known how we could change it. But we've known that this is going on. As soon as you look at that formula, it jumps out at you.
Yeah, so hopefully I can help you with that.
Right.
That'd be great.
I've heard about it
Help
for
us with
years.
state aid too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to put me in, Patrick, I'm happy to go rattle cages. You know how I love to fight with people.
Like to
You
get that
just-
money back.
You just give me a call. and
With
let me-
interest.
Let me know who you want me to go ask.
Right.
I'm
Well, I've heard
happy to
about
do
this
it.
for years, and you've been on for what, how many years now? 6?
5.
Yeah, 5. So I mean, it's an ongoing problem that all these roadblocks get thrown up in it. Thrown up is a good word.
And just,
Paul?
I've heard other people talk about this. Is there any way to create more flexibility in how that money is?
Yes, yes. So we are anticipating opening a docket. I would anticipate that will be open by the end of 2020. And what we'll do is we'll put it out for comments with the counties, and we'll ask you to tell us what you would like changed. And then we'll take all that feedback and we'll do a new set of rules, because it is, in many cases, it is a little bit too restrictive. And what ends up happening is money gets stranded. People can't,
Crazy.
they can only spend it on very certain things. And so then it ends up just getting stockpiled, and that doesn't do anybody any good. So yes, you tell us, think about what changes you would like, because there will be an opportunity to give that feedback very soon.
Good. So the bottom line is vote yes in March, we think, if you want our advice. And we're going to keep discussing with Mr.
I'm
Borders, and
sorry.
we'll set this up. Yeah.
How soon does it come after the committee? Does it come to the PSC for
It'll be quick, couple
Quick.
weeks.
a couple weeks? Okay.
All right. Okay.
And then we'll, I think we should make a run at getting the other commissioners to adjust it. If they won't adjust it, if you want me to vote yes, I'll vote yes. And then say all the reasons I don't like voting yes,
Right.
because it's not enough money. But I honestly think that if the county can approach them and say, look, this isn't gonna work for us. Oftentimes what happens is people don't know what to say and they don't know who to say it to. So it just passes.
Right.
I think if you put up a little resistance, you'll get a better outcome.
Good. Great advice.
Great.
Thanks, Crystal. And you're welcome to stay if you'd like. Or
You haven't seen the center yet, have you?
I have been to this one over
Okay,
here.
not our new one.
No, not the
Kathy,
new one.
and if you, both of you, matter of fact, if you want to take a little lead, we're going to be talking about other things, but then come back as soon as possible.
Is that okay?
But please take her on a
Oh, yeah, you'll be
tour.
at the-
Wait till you see it.
It's cool.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks a lot.
I appreciate you letting
Yeah,
me
no,
come
we
back.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Crystal.
It's been just driving me bananas. I just been like, you want to give them, what? No, that's not going to work for me.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Crystal.
You got it, anytime.
Okay,
And then, Marianne, just let me know
Okay,
what works for you,
okay,
okay?
all right, great.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Crystal.
Thanks, Crystal. Thanks a lot, Kathy. We'll be in touch before we leave.
All right.
Thanks. Hey, Leah, thanks, kiddo. Paul, we're gonna be talking about some sirens and some other alternatives and all sorts of stuff. And how are things going in general? Pretty good? Equipment, okay. Equipment is still in somewhat shape or not?
Say again?
How's the equipment, the sirens going? Are they being pieced together? Are you able
Well,
to
no,
operate?
it's, we have spring fix up. We have that every year. So we got to pay attention to the sirens themselves in the spring. It happens every year.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I should-
Oh, we have to, we go out and we test the sirens. You have to fix them.
Yeah.
We have to do that every year.
Uh-huh.
So we never had a year that we didn't. So.
Yeah.
And this year, we did install some new equipment.
Good.
And we had to because of the new 911 center down here. So it's good. It's been tested. It's proven its functionality. So we're appreciating that very much. And .com helped us set it up so the computer interface is correct. And it was trickier than we thought. No question about it. But got it online, and I think it's got a lot of years of use left based on the system that we have.
Okay. Are you comfortable that we are covering all the people who live in Douglas County?
Great question. We have the siren coverage we have, as you know, back in the old bond issue, the sirens were established at that time.
Yeah.
We've added a few along the way, but we are getting developments now out in the hinterland. And, when you're starting to do that, the developers, depending on what, if it's just a 1 or 2 person property or a couple lots, that's one thing. But when you're establishing these new SIDs and this type of thing, then it becomes apparent that they need a siren, and so sirens are installed. I think that it's starting to slow down now. It was pretty hectic last year, and the number of developments. We still have a fair number of developments going in, but it didn't crescendo like it did last year.
Are the SIDs or developers balking at the cost of a siren? That's okay? Good.
In fact, that's been surprising, actually. But
Yeah, well, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, so you're comfortable with the county being covered?
yeah, overall, I would say this, though, as the things move forward, as the developments occur, especially out in the western part of the county, there's probably going to be additional siren coverage out there, as this thing goes along. We've only got one real old vintage siren. The rest of them, we have some old parts, but we're keeping them up. And I think overall, it's a very stable system.
Okay. Marianne?
Well, and I know, Paul, that we've talked about this many times over the years, but this may be a good time to actually talk about it again. And that is, if the siren coverage for these areas is a little bit inadequate at this time, or we have to add costs to supply a new siren for those areas, would it not behoove us to look again at the alternatives that are out there besides sirens for alerting people of an emergency?
Well, 2 things. Number one, we don't pay for the sirens. We don't. So the only cost that we have to the sirens
Maintenance.
is maintenance.
Right.
So, and the sirens that do get put in are the newer ones. So the newer ones aren't the ones that cost us. It's the old ones, But in addition to that, we've grasped on to cell phone notifications.
Right.
So we're notifying people through cell phones, and it's a pretty powerful system. And in fact, it just got improved in January here.
Mhm.
So it's very positive there. So we're going to be using cell phones as well. And it's a comprehensive approach where we try to use cell phones and the media and the sirens. And so it depends on what the disaster or what the emergency is, depends on what system we actually use.
But the cell phone.
Mhm.
The cell phones, do you need to have your, do you need to have your location turned on?
No,
Do you
not
need to
for
have
an
an app?
emergency.
So it'll work on any cell phone. You don't have to.
It's like an Amber
actively-
Alert?
Yeah, if you get an Amber Alert,
Actively do anything
yeah, just like an Amber Alert.
to get it. Because
You don't
my
have to
thing
do
is
anything.
early on, you either had to download an app or you had to have your location turned
The
on.
only thing you can do, you can shut them off.
But you'd have to proactively do that. So if I just do nothing, I get my cell phone, new cell phone, I haven't done anything to it, I will get the alerts.
Mary Ann?
Well, so have we recently taken a look across the country of how people are providing the emergency notification to their citizens?
You know, what did they do in the fire in California, for example? Did they have that or not?
Right, I mean, how many jurisdictions across the country still have quote sirens? If all of them do, great. If not, what do they have? Or is there something else that they have that we don't have that we should be talking about having?
Yeah, I've done that actually. And the communities that have sirens, by far and away, they retain the sirens. There are some communities that, and a few, not very many, but a few that have tried to go to strictly cell phones. And then if you don't get the cell phone alert, then you don't get notified.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, there's some communities, and there's very few of them
Yeah.
that have tried to go to cell phones.
Right.
Just exclusive cell phones and not sirens.
What's the downfall?
Downfall is the cell phones, you're just not reliable to get the notification. And we found that out during the flood. You can have two people sitting side by side and you both have AT&T. This phone goes off and this one doesn't go off.
Why? Do you know?
I don't know.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm just playing devil's advocate
Yeah,
here.
go ahead.
So where did the sirens come into play for that?
For what?
For what you just described? Somebody, the cell phone coverage, one got it, one didn't,
Mhm.
but the quote backup, I guess, or the alternative or the,
Sirens.
right, that wouldn't have played a part.
Well,
in
if
that
they're within
scenario.
audible range of a siren, they would hear a siren.
But wait a minute, you can't sound a siren. Won't they run to the basement when there's a flood?
Oh, no, I'm not talking about.
Well, we're talking about floods.
Okay, let's stay on the flood topic. Oh, okay. I'm just saying, we used it during the flood, and one cell phone would go off and another
know.
one wouldn't go off.
Set that aside.
Okay.
And she's asking about the siren. When do you use the sirens then?
We
During the
use
flood?
sirens during tornado warnings only.
During a flood? Only
No,
tornadoes?
No,
Right,
not during the
that's my
flood.
point. That's my point.
Yeah, so then you'll have no notification in a flood other than the cell phones,
Floods are
radio.
long crescendoing events. In other words, you'll get flood notices, if not days, you might even get a week's notice on a flood, if not more. In fact, right now, I got a flood notice for the end of March.
I had mine on my telephone.
Yeah. Well, you get your flood notice on your telephone, but what I'm saying is the warning period is so long on a flood. It's not like a tornado.
Well, I know, but when do you, I don't mean to argue with you, but so when did you send out the signal and AT&T went there and didn't go there? I mean.
That was on evacuation of the
Because
flooded
why?
area. In other words, when incident command said, hey, we got to get those people out of there, we sent out a notice on their cell phones to evacuate.
And that's really, is there any other way to warn them? I mean, do you use a?
We went house to house, door to door.
Well-
What's that thing called? PA system?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing. We can send, and on our cell phone alerts, we can send images.
Well, what about Amber Alerts? I mean, you talked about that. You said that that's like an Amber Alert. Why don't you use that or do you?
It's the same system.
Huh?
It's the same system.
Okay, but so do you use that?
I mean, that's the system we use.
Are you able to localize it? Like, I think you talked once with me about trying to
Yes.
localize it for the stadium downtown.
Yes.
You are able to do that.
Yes. As of January, we're within 1/10 of a mile, which is really good.
So I mean, I don't understand why we don't, do you use the cell phone stuff an awful lot or not?
Well, we have used it during the College World Series last year.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's a tornado.
Yeah, it's got to be a life safety issue. We
There's
can't,
specific federal criteria.
That's all I'm not talking about, there's a lane of traffic closed. I'm talking about a tornado coming,
it will be used during a
Yeah.
tornado.
Okay, you do use that.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. Well, actually, we don't even have to. The weather service sends it out along with their alerts, so you'll get it on your phone.
So you don't do that at all?
We don't have to on that because it's
Okay, but you
automated.
don't do it.
No, not for their alert.
Okay.
They're using our system, actually.
And it's too bad 911 isn't here, but I got this question. What about a person who's in a home who needs to make an emergency call from a cell phone? Do you know anything about that, or is that all 911?
That's not all.
Okay, all right, I'll talk to them. Okay, well, for my money, I'd sure like to see you, be sure you use those, I mean, I don't know, do you have to call somebody to say, use the Amber Alert for a tornado, or does somebody do that besides you?
For the tornado?
Yeah.
No, that's an automated system. In other words, that is totally automated.
Weather Bureau, Weather Service?
Yeah, as soon as they draw that polygon and they hit send, your phone goes off.
Okay,
As
and
long as it's over. Douglas
when do you
County.
set the siren? When do you set off the sirens?
The sirens are automated too. So we've got, that's what
They sound themselves?
when they sound, there's two elements to that. One element is, as soon as that polygon is drawn, 911 sees that polygon and they set them off.
911 does.
911 does,
Okay.
all right?
And they get a message from the weather service?
Plus you get a message from the weather service on your phone. So your phone goes off, the sirens go off,
And who, are you setting off the sirens, or is 911?
911 setting off sirens.
Okay, for a tornado or some whatever weather event.
So, and that's the thing is that, you may or may not have your cell phone on you, you may or may not get that alert, then the siren will sound, so it's a supplemental thing. And it will, it's definitely something we should continue to look at. It will require a lot of education, because the expectation is with a tornado event, the sirens go off. And if we don't have sirens, that is a culture change. that
Well, I'm
really will
not
take
saying
time.
get rid of them. I'm curious about, like Mary Ann is about, because we talked a long time ago about the cell phone thing.
Yeah.
And I was just curious if we were using it, which is good that we are. Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
we just sent out a cell phone alert. When did you do that? Jake, send that out.
Oh, in the College World Series, they had a catastrophic failure of the highway with a plate of metal sticking up, and it was like
Oh, we don't-
8.5 innings and ready to.
I'm
What
sorry.
are you talking about?
No, we also had
Oh, I remember that
We
though.
had a guy out here right north on,
Oh, yeah, I remember
We
they had to
sent that out.
stand up.
yeah, and the
Yeah, I
guy
don't remember the exact
made an
location.
escape it was a running fugitive, and we sent out a cell phone alert during that too.
Mhm.
And was that pretty localized then?
Yeah.
Which I never got.
Well, you
But you
wouldn't
would have
have
had to be in that polygon.
Yeah,
right?
I-
You
We
weren't in
drew
the
it,
danger
we drew it
area.
up there, and they said, cordon off this area and send out the alert, let people stay in your homes and all that kind of stuff, so it happened.
But that's what's nice about it. It only goes to the alert area. So that-
We're trying to, a lot of it is getting OPD and OFD and sheriff sent it out. I mean, getting people trained. The turnover of people is consistent. And so it's constant on us to keep reaching out and make sure that the continuity of operations is there. If this guy knew how to send out the alert and under what circumstances, that when he retires, this person does. We're doing that. And it's helpful when we do it.
Okay, Mary Ann?
I think the last thing that I think is important to maybe do, and it could be weekly during these times of the flooding, it would not hurt to have you come to the board meeting and give an update of where we are with the flooding issues.
Yeah.
Because of what happened last year. I mean, it was, God help us that we never have a, 500-year disaster like that again. But I think, because here, let me just give you an example. So I'm going to meetings and I'm speaking and somebody raises their hand and says, well, where are we with the flooding issues this year?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a general question, where are they getting it, I mean,
Well, the general
where do they
question,
need-
I should be able to say, yes, our emergency manager director told me this, our NRD director told me this, and here's where we are. The river, the Elkhorn River still below, the Missouri River still, at 17. We should have that information as commissioners because our constituents are asking us that. So if you came to the board meeting and just said, here's where we are, flood update.
I think that'd be really
You
useful.
could do it in 2 minutes, but it would make an impression or an impact, not only on commissioners knowing what that information is, but that we would be prepared for when we're asked those questions.
That's right.
Interesting. I guess I assumed. I assumed. that,
Where would we get the information though, Paul?
Well, from the media and you know.
But, okay, media, I'm gonna count on your information.
Yeah.
Before I count on media's
Fake
Okay.
news.
All right.
Chris Rogers?
You know, I tried to do it, but we had to cancel it. But, you know, I would really like to talk to Claire, see one of these days down, you know, in the fall, because I agree. I mean, I think it's past 100 years. You had a 100-year flood in the last 5 years. Every year's a 100-year flood.
Yeah.
It is.
I think in the fall, I mean, we should just get regular now to do a tabletop with the board. So, you know, you get used to it and know what's what. You know, I don't know how many people actually, the EOC is still gonna be down where it is, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think there's even, you know, etiquette that, you know, you need to know. I mean, I was there away from the table, but able to see
Yeah.
it. And once I saw it, then I knew where I needed to go to get information on stuff like that. I think now it almost is mandatory that, you know, even if it's, you can do one now, but like February, when you have President's Day or something, that next Tuesday, do a tabletop in February, because most likely it's gonna come in March or April.
Well, and along those lines, so what I'm hearing is that there's really going to be an issue with the Missouri River again, not so much
It's already above it.
our
Yeah.
pavilion, or not so much the creek basin, it's going to be
No.
the Missouri
Right.
River. That's
Missouri
because the
Right.
ground is so saturated that there's going to be some real
Yeah.
issues.
It's mainly with the snows up north. You know, it's
Yeah.
relatively dry down here, but, you know, there's snowfall up in the Dakotas.
Right.
People don't realize, and maybe this is a good point you bring up,
Right.
people don't realize that Gavin's Point Dam, you know, that's usually the one that they point at, you know, the releases of Gavin's Point Dam, and that's a big issue. If you look at the water that comes into the Missouri River from northwest Iowa and from the Dakotas and that feeds into that river, Gavin's Point Dam is 2/3 of a cup compared to a gallon. In other words, if you took a gallon of water, 2/3 of a cup is equal to what's in Gavin's Point Dam. So by far and away, the majority of water coming down the Missouri is uncontrolled flows from everywhere.
Well, that's more interesting than everything I've heard in the media, is what you just said. I think that's useful.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to go into one of those tabletops that was out by Claire's house.
Yeah.
down there. But I could get it, but, you know, it's getting regular now where, you know, people ask me about them, and it would take a lot. I mean, the one year in 2010, but after what happened last year, it is like
Yeah.
everybody's mind.
Commissioner, the hardest thing about the tabletop was the date. I couldn't get, you know,
No, I know.
when I was
That's
trying
what
to
I'm
get
thinking now.
dates and people just couldn't make it, you know, and
Well, why don't you do what Mary Ann suggested? I think
At least
you could
through
do kind of a,
right
yeah,
now.
I definitely could do that, you know.
that'd be great. And you can, you know, every week, I hate to say it, but it would be interesting just to come up and say, this is kind of what's going on. I mean, you know, and maybe even, I mean, Iowa really gets nailed in Council Bluffs. Boy, they get nailed, those trailer parks and
Well,
low-lying land over
It's a
there.
war.
Yeah.
That water comes down there, you know, if you
Yeah.
look at the river basin, it's a funnel that comes to Omaha.
Yeah.
And our levees win, and that's,
Right.
we push it there, they're trying to push it here.
Yeah. I got a guy back there running the sound system that can help you with pictures and graphs and showing that water narrowing down. And I think I know he's willing to help you too.
And make sure you do it really small print to fit it all in one.
Yeah, make sure, so that I have something,
We like
I have something additional to complain about. Mary Ann.
No
But-
page numbers.
But
Yeah, no
I,
page numbers.
but I think, Paul, even again, what you just said about the Missouri, if you
Yeah.
could hit on both the Platte and the Elkhorn,
Absolutely.
saying, here's where the water's coming from, here's where we stand
Yeah.
today, here's what we're watching for, the ice jams, this, you know, clear that, the water's flowing here. Those things, again, for commissioners, I just think the more information we have, the easier it is to respond to our constituents that are asking us. And everybody's on high alert. I can tell you, in Western Douglas County, I don't go anywhere. I was just in Waterloo this weekend for a function, and that was the big topic.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
topic.
No, we can do that.
Well, that'd be great. And, you know, there's that, I think it's called the Czech Civic Club that the teasers belong to, and own land out there.
Yeah.
That area is always threatened, you know.
The
and,
Sokol camp.
Yeah, the Sokol camp, exactly. And So anything you can tell about people that have interests out there, that'd be great too, because that's still in the county, I think.
Yes, and I'm sorry.
Go
Can I
ahead.
ask one other question, because or comment is the updated information on areas that that were problem areas last time. People are asking, are they fixed?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've been able to find enough information to tell folks, you know, at a later time, because I didn't have it, but to tell them, you know, that, you know, they're bringing it back up to where it was, and then that leads to a whole nother discussion, but just they're asking that, you know, with that levee fixed, what are they gonna do with this dam? Where are we on ice jams? What are the river levels? And so, you know, again, that's just important.
Who do you check with, the NRD then, or somebody
John,
else?
I just contacted John Winkler.
Yeah, John, you know, and I don't want to talk for John.
Right.
That's, you know, the NRD and the levy system, and that is theirs. And I every once in a while, I get asked questions, you know, people that have been flooded out, did you allow them to go back and rebuild? You know, and as if I can make a decision on that, you know, and that's more of a
But they don't
Ken
know.
Home type thing, but I get those questions every once in a while, you know, and I kind of duck those. And
That's because you're government. They don't know.
Well,
You're responsible. You're just government.
You're just government, yeah.
Well, I think it'd be helpful if somebody, you know, if either you or one of us, Patrick or somebody, or Kent, had information about this is the number to call, we can get them up on the screen, you know, this is who you should call about whether you can build again, this is how you can get aid, or this is what you ought to do with the NRD, or this is about a levy. I mean, if, you know, I leave it up to you people who know more about this than I do to try to help answer questions. I think it'd be a good time to get some information. You may want to participate as well.
Well, I would just add that milestone law, GIS people can be very helpful in
Very
that,
helpful.
Yeah.
in creating, and thank you for giving me credit for
Yeah.
that. But it's really, Mike is a much better resource
Oh,
for
yeah.
that. He can provide heat maps and all of those types of things. And it's at that point, you know, who needs to contact who for what? You
Yeah.
can put specific things that are related to individual addresses and
Yeah.
you know, a polygon of stuff. You can do all that. They have very good technology
They
to
do.
be able to provide that information. And then you just simply point people to that GIS resource, and they can get a whole host of things.
Okay.
You train them to do that. There's a consistent source of information, and they can keep that updated.
Paul, would you like Kent to be your kind of sidekick and fill in the blanks or not? How do you
That'd be
feel?
wonderful.
So what do you
Kent,
think
hey,
about
Kent,
the
why don't you-
meeting?
Kent, why don't you be a partner with this so you can
I'll-
fill in
I'll
some,
do it.
good deal. Thanks a lot, including the maps.
Well, I think that if Paul starts coming to the board meetings to do the short update on where we are on the flooding situations.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one thing. The tabletop thing is another thing.
think we gotta
and
talk
Do you
to
want
Clay.
it, do you
Need
want
to-
it on a weekly basis? Do you want it twice a month, or what do you?
Well, I think for the spring, I
Should be
mean,
weekly.
yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't,
March.
Put it on the agenda.
just put it on the agenda, or he can do it under citizens' comments. I mean,
Yeah.
just put it on the agenda for
Yeah.
a while, that it's gonna be an update during the spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's when the flooding occurs. And I mean, as far as
Yeah,
getting the information out to the public
Right.
is just as important as giving it to us.
So it would be like,
March the 8th.
Yeah.
flood, I'm just trying to, I'll have to think about how to word it, so we don't scare people, like flood update.
well, just information about the
Emergency
environment,
management update.
Yeah, emergency management update. That's a good.
information update.
So with that, yeah, okay, do you want it under presentations or criminal justice?
No,
Under
I would
criminal
do it
justice?
up front, just
Under presentation.
Yeah.
presentations, do
Yeah.
it fast,
Okay,
get
first.
them in an hour.
That's fine.
Do it first for these guys. But I do think, if I could make a comment, as if I haven't. But anyway, if Kent and Paul could begin working together right away, and if it's a small report, fine. If there's no map, okay, but if there is a map, fine. I mean, just use your own judgment about what you need to show. And of course, using maps is a lot more interesting than people connect faster and stuff. So I just go ahead and make it, I think it's an excellent idea to make those reports, because, you know, we just need to do it. Okay?
So can I ask you, so have you all made, Ken, based on last year, has there been any structural, like, permanent policy change, for instance, like the issue that happened where it was asked to have the fees waived for public health reasons. Has some of that become institutionalized for or are you saying it hadn't happened enough to make it institutionalized?
So some of that we have discussed. I think we've gotten to the point where we've recognized right away that it's going to be better for us to just go ahead and, for example, deploy dumpsters.
Right.
And have kind of that set up in advance, deploy them, absorb the cost to doing that, and then get reimbursement for that through the FEMA process.
That's a great idea.
That's going to be the most, I mean, that was a lesson learned, that it just makes more sense for us just to do it, not.
Good.
Okay, we'll deal with the aftermath.
Good.
But get that set up. In terms of waiving fees, I think the bigger issue is, let's get some dumpsters out there
No,
that
that's a good point.
citizens can use
Yeah.
to do that.
Sure.
Now, you will be seeing in the coming months, probably by the end of the fiscal year, some recommended changes to the regulations, floodplain regulations, that will probably at least address it in one way, like the base flood elevation that is designed to help prevent damage to structures. And when we want to try to do things that are proactive, that are more resilient, that are more sustainable, those are things that going forward will help keep people out of harm's way.
Yeah.
So there will be some things going there. A couple of things, changes in the flood regulations. But yeah, just being more proactive, I think, with getting dumpsters out there, so we don't have piles of debris sitting.
Yeah.
Then we have to move again.
Go ahead.
So my last thing on it is, are you involved in any of the coronavirus stuff? And this is why I mentioned it. Well, this is why I mentioned it, because say, for instance, you do have this flood issue. Water and all this gets cut off. You got some delays. Then you got people coming in. And the way they're saying, it's going to hit the United States, just not when. I'm just like, you mix an area with flood, you mix an area with it bringing people in. I'm like, that's going to be toxic. So
Well,
I'm just wondering how that.
Coronavirus in and of itself is
Yeah.
serious concern. I mean, the flood's probably secondary compared to that. But that's one thing we've been talking about within our office, and that is the emergency planning that's in the forefront for coronavirus. And, truthfully, we just don't have, we're so incredibly busy up there, we just don't have the staff for additional.
Well, this is what I need you all to do, but I need it quick. Dr. Poole, hopefully Marianne can make it. We're supposed to have a meeting with Senator Fisher on Tuesday. And we'll have a meeting
With Fisher?
Yeah, but more.
Senator Fisher?
Yeah,
Okay.
and with Bacon, but it's more so in Senator Fisher's hands because they're been the majority. She's been keeping the cost. And the main thing is you're gonna give $1 billion for this piece. You gotta, you at least should be able to find some money for local infrastructure. And if we're gonna be a permanent home for this thing, I need you all to give me some numbers so we can make this case.
And it's interesting that for the first time in the years that I've been with the county, that I got an email on Friday from the Assistant Director of the United States Department of Health and Human Services for the Kansas City region, sent to me and declared due asking for our cell phone numbers in case they need to contact us in an emergency as it relates to the coronavirus. So I just told them, send it to me or to Diane Carlson, and call us, and then we'll relay it to all the commissioners if there's an emergency. But that's weird because that didn't happen during the pandemic bird flu thing, didn't happen during the Ebola thing.
Wasn't sure we announced that.
So
I'm just saying today it ratchets up a little bit. I mean, USA
Yeah.
Today and everybody warns
They're saying it's coming.
potentials for it's coming. Yeah, no doubt.
Well, one of the things that we want to plan for, and again, you'll probably see it in a request for an emergency planner, to be honest with you. We want to move faster forward in a COG plan, continuity of government and continuity of operations plan within government. There's typically 3 scenarios that you probably should plan for. One is when you're short of people,
But we
Another
have
one.
those.
short of IT, and you can't occupy your space.
We already did those plans.
We did pandemic plans.
No, we did the coop. Remember when that guy came?
Yeah,
and
he
the
did.
coop plans?
And you know what? To be honest with you, we looked at them and believe it or not, they're somewhat outdated and there is a different focus with coronavirus. I mean, this is just a little bit different. And so just having said that, in the future, it's too premature to say what we need. I will say that, but we're looking at it. We want to see how this thing evolves just a little bit more because it is of concern.
Mary Ann?
But you bring up a good point, because that's a question that I had from somebody was, do we have plans? And my answer was, oh, yes, we have plans for a pandemic outbreak. We've done that. We have it. We're ready. And now I'm hearing, no, we're not,
No,
maybe, we're
The
not.
pandemic plans are in place.
But this is different.
I'm just saying, this is. this is a
I know,
little
but we need to know then what we need that's different. You know what I mean? I mean, if this is, it's different, I get that, but what is it in our plan that we don't have that we need to have?
Go ahead.
No, and I think there's probably a new level of engagement because we're about to be the home of one of these sites.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We're about to be the home of one of these sites.
Yeah.
It's, and talking to some people up there, this thing is, well, UNMC makes it seem like it is coming, but the fact is that there's still some dynamic because what senator or congressman doesn't want to have 1.5 billion invested in their community. It's not totally there. They still got to do it, but once it happens, you become an epic place, and your engagement with the board is going to have to be on another level. With that one now.
I'd say you're hitting the nail on the head. It's one thing to be, a municipality in this country
Yeah.
where the impact of a pandemic comes to you. It's another thing to say,
Bring them here.
This is us, we're it.
We want to do that. Yeah.
it's a different dynamic.
Okay.
Well, we also need to face that, what I heard in the news last night is that communities people are complaining, don't bring any of that stuff here. Not here, I don't think. But that's, I did have somebody ask me, why are they bringing it here? And I said, the University of Nebraska is all set up for it at the medical center, from what I heard. But
No, they're not. They're lobbying for it.
There's so many
They
beds,
have
but
the-
there's not that many
There's
beds
only
now.
10, isn't there, from the
Well,
Apollo?
that's,
Yeah, so the 1.5 billion, that's
They're not
contributed,
talking-
that's way in the future. I mean, now we only have how many beds?
I think 24 or something.
Oh, 20.
So if it does come here,
12 and 8.
that's gonna go
Yeah.
like that.
We've got 14 here now and we're not taking any.
Well, I heard they had 10 vacant. They got 14 people, but
Yeah.
10 vacant beds.
Yeah, we're not, but I don't think they're taking any more patients.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we need to think about that. and keep
Unless
talking
it
about
breaks
it.
out in the US.
Yeah. If it breaks out-
Unless it breaks out in
What?
the US.
Yeah.
What did you
If it
say,
does
Dave?
that, it just-
Who gets to decide whether they take patients or not?
Well, I
Med
imagine
Center or the
UNMC
Fed?
does.
No, it's
Well,
capacity.
CDC said no to begin with and was overruled for them to come here. So
What's that?
anyway, again, those are those things though that as commissioners, I think we need to have more kind of brutal conversations about it in our part.
They need to be classified too.
Yeah, I don't think some of this conversation is public as well.
Well, we have a leak frequently in our county board executive session, so just.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Huh?
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Patrick.
You just outed me. But that's all right.
I really appreciate this, and I apologize for it being so long before we got back to you, and I wonder, is Dr. Poor involved in these conversations with us and you
Yes.
and everybody? Okay, good.
She's
Well,
She's
she's
like
going
the
to
lead.
DC. and
Oh,
we're going
okay,
to
good deal.
Wilmington.
Great, okay, good
She's
deal.
like the lead
Okay,
here.
you're not going to tell Trump, are you? I'm just kidding. Just joking.
I'm just saying, he made a statement today, said something like, oh, this will blow over. during
Yeah, it's
summer."
gonna blow
Everybody's
over.
like, what the-
In the spring, the warm weather is going to kill it. That's what he said. Yeah. Well, anyway, I want to thank all of you for coming, and this is really a great spot to meet. You know what I'd like to do is do our tri-county out here.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be amazing for them to see the center out here and the volume of calls and all the rest of it?
Absolutely.
You know, I wanted to say too, that us being out here and the partners that we have that are so close.
Yeah.
I mean, we deal with Kent, we deal with
Yeah.
Tom McDonald here, county engineer, and 911, and our people are here. It's just conducive to efficiency.
Yeah.
It just is.
Well, the county board is thinking about moving their offices out here too, so.
Fine with me.
We all raised our hands,
They've already voted.
Unless we're gonna get like a duplex together out west.
Let's do it, Patrick. Hey, listen, but thanks a lot, and no other business will adjourn. I do want to thank all of you. I will want to say one quick word. I'm really, have a deep respect for the kind of people we have working with us in these efforts. I mean, we're so fortunate all the way around, everything from Dan Ash to the other commissioners. I have such much respect for him, Patrick, the whole bunch, Paul, just it's incredible. The guy that watches the money, our junior mouthpiece over here. Not so junior sometimes. And Kent too is just, anyway, we've got a good team going and I'm very thankful.
Can I ask one
Yeah.
more thing? So when we're talking about you and your planning for a disaster again, one of the, probably the top complaint I got from folks was that they kept getting mixed messages depending on who they talk to.
Ooh.
And I don't know how we work to make sure that if somebody calls, you know, you say A, and if they call me, I say A, instead of you saying A and B saying B.
A couple of things. Down in that emergency operation, Leah's presence there is fantastic. And so that was the purpose, that she and, because we had flooding going on both the east side of the county and the west side, she and Carrie Murphy would combine that, you know, make sure that the message that came out of Unified Command was consistent. And so that went out to the public. So, and people typically didn't call me. They don't know how to get a hold of me anyway sometimes.
I only used you as an example,
Yeah, okay.
not that you gave wrong information.
Well, and quite frankly, there's many people that are involved in the response, and
I know,
people-
I'm just saying that that's one of the things that the citizens talked about where there was problems. And that when we're planning, if we can just keep that on the top to say, yes, we did it this way, but how can we make it better? To make sure that everybody's saying the same thing. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. We're a long way from 2011 flood. I will tell you that. We made a huge amount of improvement in that point. 2011, that was terrible.
I know.
Let me mention something that goes way back. I've always talked about when I was mayor. Bob Kerry was governor and I was mayor, and there was something called AgNet. Anyone know that or know about it?
I've
AgNet?
heard them, but I don't
It's
know
a
what
riot.
it
It
is.
was by telephone line, and it was, you type into it and you get this printed copy of, back and forth. So Carrie and I could pass jokes back and forth. Anyway, we didn't realize how public it was. But anyway,
Kind of like.
but what I put together for the mayor's office was something called a Monday morning report. And what it was everybody and all the cabinet members would just do a short little report. You know, today I'm going to a meeting to talk about the flood that happened in 2011. And I'm going to be meeting Paul Johnson about that kind of stuff. And then all at once, oh my God, I'd like to know about that. Or, or we're going to discuss restriping Dodge Street down to 2 lanes, but I mean, and you'd find out this stuff, and it was a good way to keep in touch. And I'm not saying, it has to be, I suppose you have to be, when you start off, you have to be careful that it could be public, that, there's somebody, I guess you got to be careful to whom you send it. But it was really useful. It really helped, like Joe, with your writing, we're going to be talking to the bond company, the bond issuers today about this interest rate or something, or we're going to do this, or it was really an interesting thing. And it might be helpful to think about trying that among some people, maybe this group here that is tuned into this flood emergency and the information you want, the things you said about the influenza, or what do you want to call it, coronavirus. I mean, I think it may be something, we ought to just try that. I don't know if it's anything we want to, maybe it's too confidential, I don't know. But think about it.
But Bud Light Corona's offering Bud Light 25 million to rename coronavirus Bud Light virus.
My grandson Sam calls it Bud Light virus. I think he's on the payroll. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
On a happy note.